Okay, we are at 6:30. So I am going to call the West Hartford Center Special Services District meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. And we will begin with a roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Fay.
Present.
Councilor McGinnis.
Present.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Councilor Walters.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Here.
Councilor Zdanowitz.
Here.
Commissioner Spivak. Here. Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Bazanese. Here. Commissioner Suffian.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. So we will go now to public forum. I don't think there's anyone to sign up, but we should check. Again, these have been, the items on here have been subject to a public hearing, so I don't think there's anything on the agenda. Okay, no one has signed up to speak. And Mr. Town Clerk, Mr. Davidoff, have you received anything?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And then we will go to approval of minutes. Mr. Winograd, 3A.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without objection, motion to approve the minutes.
Is there any objection? All right, hearing no objection, the motion is adopted. Letter B, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without objection, motion to approve the minutes for the Special Services District public hearing on budget minutes, April 8th, 2025.
Is there any objection? There being no objection, the motion is adopted. We don't have any petitions, consideration of consent, receipt of communications. We now are at 7A. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to adopt a resolution to adopt the annual budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 and the imposition of a tax levy on each land use category thereof.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, if you wouldn't mind giving us a
Thank you, Madam
summary.
Mayor, and good evening, Town Council and Commissioners. This evening's resolution calls for the adoption of the fiscal year 26 Special Services District budget, which was presented back on March 11th initially and has not been modified since that date. Calls for expenditures of $4,327,586, which includes our bond payment of $3,643,875, parking operation expenses of $683,711, and revenues of $4,327,586. 1.7 million, $1,702,586 comprised of special services district tax, which is a tax levy that would be appropriated for the fiscal year. $2,475,000 for parking revenue, $100,000 in violation revenue, and then $50,000 in interest income. As the council and the district knows, we will be making our final bond payment in October of this year, and we will be discussing with our Finance and Administration Committee sometime over the next couple of months the possibility of dissolving the Special Services District as we move forward, but that'll be something that we'll work on through this fiscal year. Through you, Madam Mayor, happy to answer any questions that the council or commission had.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any questions for Mr. Ledwith on the budget? Okay. If there are no questions, one more time around. And again, a lot more discussion coming this coming year. Mr. Commissioner Spivak.
Did we ever resolve the situation with the parking in the Isham garage with the developer of the apartment building on Farmington Avenue? Didn't they come to us for some parking spaces?
They did, through you, Madam Mayor. So we do have a parking agreement with the Byline apartment building on Farmington Avenue, and they have the use of, I want to say, 28 spots, up to 28 spaces at the completion. They have not, we haven't signed off on a CO yet, so I do believe that will be coming within the next, 4 to 5 weeks. They're nearing completion. There has been a lot of progress over there was a lull for a little while, but they are working very quickly now and are marketing their apartments for lease.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spivak. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any questions on the budget? Mrs. Blanks?
I have a follow-up, Town Manager Ledwith, just curiosity. After that CO, do they have a period of time, and probably through you to or Court Counsel, do they have to submit that information for the parking spaces?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe there was a minimum involved that they will need to begin making payment on immediately. And then I'd have to research the agreement to find out what happens after that. I forgot. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Thank you, Ms. Ledwith. Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none, we will now go to roll call vote. Mr. Davidoff?
Counselor Blanks,
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Counselor Cortez,
Yes.
Counselor Fay,
Yes.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Counselor Poland,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd,
Yes.
Counselor Zdanowitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Spivak,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Okay, so we have no new business, no consent calendar, no staff reports, no executive session. Without objection, I make a motion to adjourn. Is there any objection? We are now adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Okay. I'm calling the April 22nd Town Council meeting to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Counselor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Counselor Cortez.
Here.
Counselor Fay.
Present.
Counselor McGinnis.
Present.
Counselor Poland.
Here.
Counselor Walters.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Here.
Counselor Zdanowicz.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Thank you. This meeting is a little bit different. This is our budget adoption meeting, and we are restricted by having that it be the primary thing on the agenda. We do have one other piece of business that we do need to take care of, but we'll begin with 4A. And as far as public comment goes, I don't see anybody signed up. If anyone is here to speak to something other than the budget, which I don't see, then, okay, so that goes over there. And then we'll begin with 4A, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without objection, I move that items 5A through 5C be placed on the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the items are placed on consent. Mr. Winograd?
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 7 is, before we consider the budget items under new business on the agenda, I suggest that we revise the agenda order to consider item 10, notice of town planner's intention to approve Special Development District Administrative Amendment number 87 from Fellowship Housing at this time. Is there any objection, and you guys can vote, I have legal consult. Is there any objection to revising the agenda order? Hearing none, the agenda order is revised. Before we begin the debate on this item, Councilors Cortez and Winograd sit on the board of the Fellowship Housing Authority and have asked to recuse themselves in order to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest. Those members are recused and will not participate in any discussion or vote. Ms. Poulin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move receipt of the notice of town planner's intention to approve Special Development District Administrative Amendment number 87 from Fellowship Housing at this time.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. So, Mr. Ledwith, could you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the communication you're voting on this evening is an administrative amendment approval submitted by the town planner for Special Development District number 87, which, as Councilor Poland just said, is for Fellowship Housing located at 10-60 Starkle Road. The request approved by the town planner is for minor architectural and landscape changes to accommodate adjustments for MDC, Eversource, and CNG, and falls within the scope of approval authority for the town planner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We need to
Oh,
roll
wait,
call.
roll call.
Apologies. We'll go roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Counselor Blanks.
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Counselor Cortez is abstaining. Counselor Fay.
Yes.
Counselor McGinnis.
Yes.
Counselor Poland.
Yes.
Counselor Walters.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd is abstaining. Counselor Zdanowitz.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Okay, now number A, or letter A, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt the ordinance concerning appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. For discussion purposes, we are going to include items A, which is the actual budget, item B, which is our CIP, that is our CNR, that is our CIP, C, which is our CNRE, and D, which is the ultimate resolution on the property tax levy. For discussion purposes, those are grouped together. We will move them separately. And then E is a separate year-end transfer. So we will move that but again, we'll discuss that separately. Well, all of those will be moved separately, but discussed together. So I am going to turn it over to Mr. Ledwith. Again, this is our annual budget vote, and we have been working on this for a long time, many items throughout the year, but the actual preparation of the numbers, some we don't know till towards the end of the year. But Mr. Ledwith, if you could kick that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening again, everyone. If the town clerk can bring the screen down, I just have a slide that I'd like to share with everyone. And as you may recall, back in early March when I presented the original budget, our theme at the time was navigating challenges with strength and purpose, and has served our leadership team very well as our guiding principle throughout what has been a very complex and thoughtful process. Is it going to pop up, you think? Give me one sec, sorry. So as we know and we've discussed over the last few months, we have been faced with rising costs, economic uncertainty, increasing demands for services, and through collaboration, community input, and disciplined decision-making, we have arrived to where we are this evening. Since the release of the original proposed budget, which called for a 6.75% increase in the mill rate, we have worked diligently to find ways to reduce its impact while still preserving the high-quality services our residents expect. Following a very robust and inclusive public process, including 3 community conversation meetings co-hosted by the Town Council and Board of Education, 3 formal public hearings, and 7 budget workshops combined between the town and the Board of Education, we have reduced the original proposed budget by $2.58 million. And as a result of that, the final budget reflects a mill rate of 44.78, which is a 5.74% increase from fiscal year 25. Every effort was made to minimize this increase while maintaining fiscal responsibility and investing in core services like education, public safety, infrastructure, and community well-being. And as you can see, the $2.558 million in cuts are found at the bottom. The Board of Education reduced their budget on April 1st by $475,000. The 44.78 mill rate would include a $1.4 million further reduction to the Board of Education budget, with the assumption that the state budget will include additional excess cost reimbursement funds statewide. We've been assured by CCM, by our delegation, that in fact will be in the budget, and are confident that we will see that as we move forward. Should it not happen, we would be back before the council and before the Board of Education to share in a reduction of our current budget by $700,000 for the town and $700,000 for the Board of Education. We have further reduced our town contingency payroll account by $400,000 for unsettled labor contracts, and we've reduced our debt number by an additional $100,000, and then further utilized $100,000 of bond premium. As the council may not actually all know this at this point, but Standard & Poor's reaffirmed our AAA rated bonds rating status on Friday the 18th, and we did issue $15 million of general obligation bonds today, and received a very favorable 3.982% total interest cost rate for the issuance of those bonds. We deeply appreciate the public's engagement throughout this process and thank the council for your countless hours, dedication, insight, and commitment to our community through not only this budget process, but for what you do throughout the entire year. And before I turn things back to you, Madam Mayor and the council, just wanted to again thank our team, particularly our finance team who are here this evening, Lisa and Patty, who've been very, very patient with me over the last 6 weeks as we've worked through many different iterations of this budget. So, and of course, a big thank you to our directors as well for their leadership through this process and throughout the year. So, through you, Madam Mayor, I will turn it back to you and the Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. We are going to alternate, and I'm going to call on people. So I'm going to start actually with our finance team, and I'm going to go to Deb Pullen first. So, and then I'll go to you, Mark, Mr. Zdanowitz, and we'll go back and forth. So go ahead, Ms. Pullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Vice Chair of Finance and Administration Committee, I do want to take a few moments to provide a high-level overview of how we landed where we are this evening, and thank you to Mr. Ledwith for laying out that process, and you saved everybody about like a minute's worth of what I have written out, so thanks for taking care of that. The budget is a hefty document. It comes with a hefty responsibility. Our town council committees, as you indicated, did each meet. We reviewed the budget proposal line by line. And I do also want to thank all of the department heads and staff members who participated in those meetings to provide us with information, as well as to answer follow-up questions from us as we sought to learn and understand more, pushed and prodded a little bit, and raised ideas. When Mr. Ledworth presented the budget proposal back in March, we had a total increase proposed of 6.5% over the current year budget, which would have resulted in a mill rate of 45.21 versus our current mill rate of 42.35. This level of increase was really startling to a lot of us. Why was it so dramatic? On the school side, the rising cost of special education was a major driver. And on the town side, it's mostly because our employees, almost virtually across the board, were due increases. And because the cost of their health insurance also went up more dramatically than it had in the past. The town and the schools are run by professionals who are outstanding in the true sense of the word. They provide services to residents of all ages. In short, we are a people business. The second significant factor is that we've had very little growth in the grand list from last year. And that's how we get our revenue. About 85% of it is from property taxes, then some from the state, some from the federal government, and some from fees. But 85%, that's from you and from us, the taxpayers in town. Whether we own our homes or rent, we're paying property tax to fund our libraries, to fund trash pickup and public safety, and our teachers, and all that makes West Hartford such a vibrant place to be. Like you, I look around town, I see all the buildings going up, and I'm hopeful that when those buildings are completed and all of our new neighbors have moved in, we're going to see some more grand list growth so that we can spread that responsibility out some more. And our projections do show that that will happen over the next couple of years. We're going to see significant growth in the grand list. And perhaps in the future, we might see some additional revenue sources available to us as well. For example, a portion of the state meals tax was supposed to go to the town where the restaurant is located. When you think about all of the restaurants we have in town, what an impact that 1% would make for our budget. We would have a revenue source provided from people who visit our restaurants and taking some of the burden off of people who live here. That's something we are talking about with our state legislators, and we know that they do hear us. We have the new cannabis tax, and we most likely are going to have revenue coming in later this year from speed and red light cameras, but revenues from those sources are to be used for very, very specific purposes. So property tax, that's basically what we have. Now, personally, I would have liked to have kept taxes flat this year. And so I asked some questions about what that would have taken. What would it be like to go just have no tax increase at all? And Mr. Manager let me know that we would need to cut another $20.1 million from our budget to make that happen. $20.1 million didn't seem like a lot of money to me in a big budget like ours. So I decided to poke around and see what does $20.1 million buy you in the town budget. Eliminating our entire fire department does not get us to $20.1 million. Closing all of our libraries, plus all of our parks, pools, senior centers, and other leisure services programs, and eliminating street maintenance, and eliminating snow removal, and eliminating trash pickup, that doesn't get us to $20.1 million either. Realistically, we probably would have had to ask our colleagues on the Board of Education to lay off about 125 teachers. Plus, we would have to make some of these drastic cuts on the town side as well. Those types of changes, that's not who we are. That's not why I moved to West Hartford or why most people move to West Hartford and have chosen to stay in West Hartford. So we've worked to reduce the budget where we can while maintaining who we are. So here's where we've landed. As Mr. Ledwith has indicated, we now are showing an increase of 5.74% over last year's budget, which is a significant decrease from where we started 6 weeks ago, and a mill rate of 44.78. Specific to the Human and Community Services line items, and moving to that since I chair that committee, I want to thank Helen Rubino-Turco, Liz Bazinski, Gretchen Levitz, Becky Sears, and all the members of Leisure and Social Services teams for your work to ensure that West Hartford is a community that has opportunities for recreation and socialization and caring for others. We're gearing up for the summer season now, and that's when some of their work really shines, and we can see it out in as we drive around town and walk around town. The pools are open, there's camps going on, the parks are being used, but the amount and variety of programming throughout the year is significant. I want to add that this team thinks really creatively about seeking out grants and using opioid dollars and other revenue sources so that they can continue to provide services that meet the needs of our residents without only relying on property tax. So thank you for doing that. In the next year, we're going to continue to see work towards our new community center. Fingers crossed, the completion of our new driving range, hopefully this summer, and a new pool at Eisenhower Park, and the completion of a study on accessibility for our residents. And that study, the survey went out this week, actually, so hopefully everybody will take a few moments to complete that. On the library side, I want to thank Laura Ermsher and her team for providing open, welcoming environments at the 3 libraries in town. Last year, they provided 7,500 library service interactions each day. The number of visitors to our libraries has increased over the past several years, and we do expect that number to continue to grow this year. And anytime there are times of uncertainty, visits to the library grow because it's a place where people can just go for free. It's climate controlled. They can read, they can socialize, they can use the computer. We have a maker space. There's all kinds of great programming. And on the library side, we know that they're going to continue to play a role in the design of the new community center as well. So this budget, it's a compromise. On the town side, which is about 40% of the budget, we're not adding any new employees. We're still at 472 employees, and we're really not adding any new services. What we're doing is we're maintaining what we have so that we can maintain who we are. I urge your support.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen, and thank you for your work on Human and Leisure Services and on finance. I'm going to go to Mr. Zdanowitz for the other member of finance.
Thank you. Just want to thank everybody who put all the hard work into developing this budget. It's a huge undertaking, and I know that you guys start early, and there's a lot of work that goes involved and a lot of late nights. So I want to thank you for all that, and I don't take it lightly. I know everybody's doing their due diligence out there. I just kind of want to give an overview of some things. In 2025, the general wage increase for federal employees was 2%. Cost of living is 2.5%. Military pay rose by 4.5%. U.S. employees outside of the government increases were 3.6% in 2024 and projected to be 3.3% in 2025. However, our overall payroll here in West Hartford is 7.6%. A lot higher number than normal, and I understand that, and I know how we got there, but it's something that, as a fiscal conservative, that we need to work on and go forward. There's many times that I've sat here that we've talked about a number or something that's gotten out of control, and we haven't looked at it in 20 years. I've heard that conversation time after time, and it's something that we can't continue to do. In the private industry, you're looking at stuff weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly, all the time, every time, because it's the money that feeds your employees and feeds the growth of your company. We can't continue to look at those after 20 years and let them slip through the cracks. We need to look at them at a closer going forward. I think it's something that we can do, something that we can overcome. It's something that I think we have to do as a town. We talk about the growth in the grand list by 85%. I sat here voting for a lot of this growth here in West Hartford because I know how the budget's developed and where payroll comes in, and that our grand list needs to increase so that we can help with that. And I'm afraid that although it didn't hit this year, I'm afraid by next year that even when it does hit, we'll still sit here with an increase a year from now. And we need to avoid that because it's getting unsustainable, the taxes here in West Hartford. And just another kind of paint a picture, because we talk about ARPA funds and we've hired a lot of COVID employees, and I just want to use an example. We moved out of our school systems 2 entire high schools, and then an additional 2 other classes out of our high school since 2020 that have no effect on COVID. Those students K through 5 have no real effect on COVID in the school systems. And our students during COVID, K1, 2, are some of the most resilient kids that exist because of that age. Not really grasping the concept of COVID and what they're expecting. So I think that we need to look at that as well for those COVID employees that we've hired through ARPA funding and such. It's something that we have to look at closely. We've moved a lot of those kids out. They are resilient, these kids, and I see it all the time. There's very little effect of COVID left in the school systems. And I don't know how we fix that, but it's something that we have to look at with a microscope. I've been doing this for 12 years now, and I've been very unsuccessful up here as far as cuts. I've made suggestions of cuts last year. They were unsuccessful. Every time we do it, they want to go after employees. Like, oh, we can't do that, Mark. We have to get rid of 12 police and 12 fire, because it pulls at your emotional tags, and it's not something that's I think fair, quite honestly, because everyone goes, oh, we have to cut employees. That's not necessarily true. GE's concept used to be successful. They do it in the private, where budgets have to be cut. Doesn't have to be employees. It can be other things. I mentioned the other day about our senior center, maybe potentially pushing that down the road and funding it. And I think that's what we're doing. So that's something that I applaud. It's not something that we need tomorrow. And if we have such a huge budget as we do, I think those are the things that we have to look at creatively, and pushing some of that stuff down the proverbial road, because we don't have the money now. So these budgets are tough every year. I don't point any fingers at one particular person or group. I know everybody does their due diligence, and we have a lot of great directors, a lot of great leadership here in West Hartford that takes this very seriously. It's unsustainable the way it's heading, and I don't know how to stop it personally, but we have a great team here in West Hartford that can look at it collectively, not just an individual or people sitting up here to do all the work and say, hey, cut it 5%, cut it 3%. It's something that we have to look at collectively as a group, and I hope we can work together over the next year looking at that budget and tightening it up as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zdanowicz. I really appreciate your thoughts. Okay, we're going to go to Mr. Walters.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. So, like everyone at the dais here, I would like to thank Town Manager Rick Ledwith and Town and Board of Education staff for their hard work at bringing us a budget. This was not an easy task, and I know sleep was lost in putting it together. I would be remiss if I did not mention the work of my caucus colleagues. There was much discussion, conversation, perhaps a little debate between us. It was healthy, and I thank and respect the process we engaged in to get to where we are today. I'm going to first speak to the committee for which I chair, Public Works Facilities and Sustainability. There is a small army of folks who keep West Hartford running. It is actually probably a smaller army than many of you think. I want to mention the efforts of Catherine Devaney and Catherine Bronze, who lead our sustainability efforts. Whether it's recycling, energy savings, food scrap collection, they are constantly looking for cost reduction efforts and making West Hartford more sustainable for current and future residents. There is Brooke Nelson, who has been a leader with parking, instrumental in bringing us, for one example, an app that will evolve as needs demand. Robert Palmer is our Director of Plant and Facilities Services. He is charged with keeping our buildings safe, up to date, and ready to serve a multitude of uses. Not an easy job given our aging structures. Final mention will be Public Works Director John Phillips. John is a powerhouse that is determined to provide the best possible service at the best possible price. He works diligently to keep our infrastructure safe to drive on, bike on, and to walk on. He thinks outside the box and explores innovation and technology to meet our needs. It has been a true pleasure to work with John. Indeed, our town is a better place because of all the aforementioned folks and their dedication to West Hartford. Now, before any of us saw the budget, we were already faced with a lot of what-ifs. What if the current administration in Washington makes cuts to Title I? What if our federal grants are rescinded? What if the governor's fiscal guardrails negatively impact the education cost sharing even more than they already do? What if our children cannot get school lunch? What if, what if, what if? I personally walked into this process with the attitude that I can only work with what was in front of me and perhaps lay a foundation for the inevitable coming from state and from Washington. With that said, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, the original budget was extremely upsetting. My immediate thought was the tax increase associated with the budget is simply just too much to expect our residents to pay, that there would be a negative impact on our most vulnerable residents. But as I delved into the pages of numbers, pages and pages of numbers, I found no major area where a significant change could be made to lower the budget. And by significant, I mean something more than $30,000. You know, every little bit counts, I get it, but there was no big red flag. On the town side, any meaningful reduction would likely, well, certainly would have negatively impacted those vulnerable residents with a reduction in services that they may rely upon. On the Board of Education side, I'm told that the same conditions exist and cuts would directly impact the classroom. The reality is that the current system, where there is almost a complete dependence on property taxes for municipal funding in Connecticut, is broken and unsustainable. To make the budget process even more difficult, the state continuously does not provide funding required by their own statutes. The bottom line, the town is limited in methods to raise revenues. We are hobbled by state policies and actions that would fully fund mandates. Now we are facing extreme uncertainty on the federal level with further cuts looming over the state and local governments. This council has once again been tasked with adopting a budget that best serves all of our residents without overburdening the most vulnerable. We are required to meet residents' expectations that vary as much as our diverse population. I am not going to say this is a perfect budget. I don't think it is. I will say, though, and I know I am repeating myself, that with the uncertainty, with the underfunded mandates, with the state's fiscal guardrails, and with the lack of available avenues to raise revenues independent of the state, this is the budget we have. I do not see it going lower without direct impact on services and classrooms. Therefore, I will be in favor of this budget, with the sincere hope that meaningful change can be made to better support the municipalities of Connecticut, especially our own, better supporting our amazing town of West Hartford. Thank you, and back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Barry, for your comments. Mary, Ms. Fay, would you like to go?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I will refrain from repeating some of the comments that were already said to be expedient here with our time. But I did have some of the same similar ones. I think the first initial budget presentation with a 7+% increase was a non-starter for me. That was just way too much given the time. And I think all the things that we're feeling in our budget, our people in our town are feeling. The employment numbers aren't very good. Mark alluded to the private sector. He did mention GE. I was a General Electric senior executive for a number of years, running one of the largest businesses for GE Capital. And every year I had to take out 5%. And because I was running the biggest business, I got stuck with 10%. And we did it. And it wasn't a bloodbath. We didn't lay off people every time we had to do that. But times are tough, and they really are. And rather than look to the federal government or others for bailing us out, which is what they did with the ARPA funds, they bailed out a lot of municipalities. We really have to face into this, and we should have been better prepared for this. I think adding a tax increase and a mill rate increase, and on top of the already 5% tax increase on cars, is just unpalatable. We use the word unsustainable, that's true, but it just can't be absorbed by the people in our town any longer. We do know we have capital project overruns. I think we do focus on wants sometimes more than just needs. I can name two. I don't want to go through that, but one was our animal shelter, which is coming in twice what our original budget was, and the second is the Eisenhower pool, which I don't have the final numbers on, but I know that's a big overrun. So I think there's some things that we need to do to tighten our belts. We really do. I do want to take a minute though and recognize the work. I know how hard this is to doing. I've been a financial professional most of my career, and budgets is not fun. It's not easy, and it's not obvious and intuitive of where you can cut. And cuts are painful. They absolutely, positively are. What's different for me in the 4 terms I've been in are these budget roll forwards, and your baseline never changes. You just roll it forward, and it's all a matter of how much we're going to suffer with the inflation rate that we're going to apply to it. I prefer a much deeper dive on the line by line to really identify opportunities that there are possibilities to throw our hands up every year after year, and say, it can't be done, it can't be done, it can't be done. I think that's a poor excuse, and I think we've seen other municipalities that have done things and have been able to protect their taxpayers. I'm very worried. I know we're a hot town, and I love living here. I'm not going to disagree with any of those comments. My daughter is in the education system. It's top-notch. So I am very proud of being a West Hartford resident. But at some point, we're going to tip, and how much is too much to pay to be a West Hartford resident? There are other places to go. And I think our mill rate is getting really into the stratosphere. All decisions have consequences. And I think we've made some in the past that are putting us in this bad budget position. Tax abatements on some of the development. Not all development is good. And while we do support low-income housing and helping folks who are priced out of the markets, that has consequences too. A lot of this development is not going to add to our tax base. So you know how I voted on some of those, and I think we're paying the price for that now. I know we want to try to come up with other revenue. I'm not so sure cannabis was the right one. Some towns haven't even gone there yet, and we're going to have our 3rd one coming online. My first year in office, 2018, there was the political will to do it. We did have a flat budget and no tax increase, so it can be done. Can it be done every year? No, absolutely not. But it can be done. And I think we really have to focus on needs versus wants. And we have a great town. We have a lot of services. We have a lot of great things that our residents enjoy. And that's terrific. But I think in really tough times, which we're in right now, we really have to really think about needs versus wants. I'm very, very, very concerned about seniors and their ability to stay in their homes because of this increased taxes. You have a paid for home in most cases, and your taxes are running $1,500, $2,000 a year. That's a lot for people on fixed incomes. Some are probably even more. I'm also concerned about attracting young professionals who we need. We need our workforce. We need a stable workforce. We need people to work for our town. We need people to work for all the businesses we have in town, and they can't afford to live here. So taxes is a big reason for that. And we know we're going to have reevaluation coming up soon, and that's going to add to this problem with unsustainable tax levels. I think this is still, and I do want to recognize the improvement. It's terrific. I'm glad that we're not at 7+% of an increase. But I still don't think we're at where we should be, considering the time and considering the pain that people are feeling now. So thank you for allowing me to share my comments.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Ms. McGinnis.
Through you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to echo my other counselors' remarks in thanking all of the town staff that worked on this budget. I know you were asked to keep your own budgets tight, and I know that wasn't easy. I want to give a special thank you to Dwayne, Todd, Kristen, and Lauren for all the work that they do. Their contributions are part of the reason why our town keeps growing. I also want to thank Rick. I know that this budget has been a real struggle, and I really appreciate that you always go above and beyond for the residents and for all of us when we have a myriad of questions that we throw at you. When I saw the original budget increase, I have to admit that I immediately started worrying about what this increase would do to our most vulnerable residents, as well as our seniors that live on a fixed income. I know what it's like to have limited resources and not know how you're going to pay for any additional expenses. As a matter of fact, part of the reason that I wanted to be on town council in the first place was to hopefully be a voice for people who are often overlooked at every level of government. I also know that we have an administration in DC that is working to dismantle the programs that many of these same people rely on. And what they're doing is trying to run our country like a business. And the results are not good, and they're only going to continue to get worse. To make a significant cut in the tax rate, we would be forced to cut programs and services that people need and want. What we did after we were presented the budget as a caucus was comb through the budget with a fine-tooth comb, make suggestions. We discussed our options, and also that we can only make line item changes to the town side, which is around 40% of the budget. As Councilor Poland said, the BOE budget makes up around 60%. Our grand list had very minimal growth, but we were lucky that we did have growth this year. Several towns in Connecticut had negative grand list growth. And over the next year, we should have a sizable increase in new units coming online that will give us a few million more in grand list growth. When the residences at Heritage Park, which is 1700 Trout Brook, are completed, we should receive another $2.2 million per year. The development at 1800, when completed, should be close to double that amount, and will also be our first large mixed-use development since Blueback. Even with those increases in grand list growth, we desperately need to have a conversation at the state level about a fundamental change in how towns can increase their revenue without increasing property taxes. We also need to be fully funded for our special ed costs. If we had been fully funded this year, we would have received an additional $2 million for this year's budget. As Councilor Walters said, the current system of complete dependence on property taxes is broken and unsustainable. At the end of the day, we, the town council, are the ones who have to approve the budget. The actions of the Trump administration and the lack of funding from the state have contributed to our current circumstances, but the buck does stop with us. This isn't the budget I hoped we would have, but when the only certainty these days is uncertainty, I think we did what we could to lower the original increase and preserve the services and programs that West Hartford residents need and want. When my husband and I moved from North Carolina, we could have lived in any of the towns surrounding Bloomfield, where my husband works. We looked at homes in several towns, which I won't name because I don't want to publicly insult any of them. We also looked at homes in Massachusetts. We chose West Hartford because it had the quality of life that we wanted and the services that we thought we would need. I'm going to end my comments with a compliment from a constituent that just happens to be my 21-year-old son. And if you know how hard it is to get a compliment out of a 21-year-old, you'll really appreciate this. We moved here from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and my son loved it there. He's a huge basketball fan, so now he's got this dual fandom. He and my husband recently went back to North Carolina for the NCAA tournament. And when they came back, my son said, you know, Chapel Hill really isn't all that. But I guess when you live someplace like West Hartford, it's hard to measure up. I urge everyone to support this budget so we can continue to be one of the best places to live in the country, and definitely the best place to live in Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. Appreciate all your work as well. I'm going to go to Alberto, and then we're going to have a few. Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor. This is definitely the hardest night of the year for me since I've been on town council. I'm a mess coming into budget night. It is frustrating. You know, I chose to run because I know how it is to, you know, be scraping by. And I know that we have residents in town that are currently in that position. You know, like who is, you know, my first campaign is like, who's going to be a voice for those who, you know, are afraid to speak up, you know, our seniors, that single mom, right, working 2 jobs, trying to keep her kids in here. And yeah, you know, we need a budget that serves the residents that can continue to live in this town year after year, right? And every time I sit in this budget, I think about those that have to make that choice and say, we can no longer live in West Hartford. We have to move, you know, for whatever reasons, or we cannot purchase our house this year. Maybe there's next year. And this is my 4th budget, so 4 years, you know, so this has been going and it keeps growing. You know, we look at the numbers from last year of employees, nothing, that has not changed. And I know it's hard to get ahead of pensions and salaries. That is the biggest driver for this budget. But, you know, when you look at numbers, 4 years that I've been here, and, you know, I'm going to use Board of Ed for example, the increase is $34 million in the Board of Ed since I've been here. Not only 34, it's 34. That's a huge number. And from last year to this year, it was the biggest increase that I've seen in 4 years. So we always look at what can we cut, you know, what services. And my fear is that, you know, I'm going to use Chief Priest's words, and we're evolving at a rapid pace, right? But as a town with the growth, but our services, you know, we're running them lean, and eventually that rubber band is going to snap. So this only 5.7% this year, I'm afraid of what it's going to be next year or 2 years on the road when all this stuff comes online. So is the formula we're using the right formula? And I think that's what we need to look at. Like if we keep using the same formula and keep hitting this same wall, I was told 2-3 years ago that the amount of growth we need to see in order for that, you know, for us to reduce the mill rate, it was like a big number. And looking at what we have going on, that's not close to what I was told before. So I don't see how all this growth is going. It's going to help a little, but not enough. I don't, you know, so how do we, because with that growth, again, our services would have to grow as well. So I just think it's the formula we're using now maybe is not the right formula. So how do we look at things and you know, maybe use a different math to do the system? It's not always salaries. You know, I always say you got a right size government, you know, is my thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean cut. You know, sometimes you need a little bit more to run more efficient, but then, you know, you see the revenue on one end. You know, the PD, for example, you know, we got cameras coming online. I'm against the cameras. I think if we, you know, made sure that not just the PD, that our departments had the right tools so we can be a little more efficient. Yes, it costs a little bit more now, but is there going to be savings at the school level? You know, high needs is driving that budget as well. So again, let's look at that formula and, you know, maybe we, you know, get support at this level that down the road, we're going to see the savings at another level where it's costing us more. So where are we, what is hurting us the most, and can we look at it from a different lens? You know, I'm one of those that how long can I afford to live in West Hartford, and thankfully, I'm in a good place and financially, and, I see there's a few years, but eventually I have a top two and I'm going to have to move out. But it's hard. It's frustrating. This is a very emotional night for me. It's very draining. And I think it's just, we got to use a different system to come up with our numbers, because there's no way that I don't see how we're going to decrease in the next couple years, how we're not going to be asking for more. Since I've been here, like I said, on the Board of Ed side alone, it's $34 million more since I got elected to town council. And if we don't start doing things differently, it's only going to go higher. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez, appreciate it. Okay, now we'll go to Ms. Blanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to start with a quote that I heard somewhere along the way, and I don't remember from whom, but we get here how we can, and it's what we do here is what matters. So I want to thank everyone who participated in this process, and I always refer to it as our version of March Madness, which began 6 weeks ago, and much longer for the town staff. A huge recognition goes out to our town manager, Rick Ledwith, working with the entire staff to get us here tonight. I know what it's like working with staff to draft a document, then meet and re-meet to make changes and more modifications to arrive at the final version that's before us tonight. I want to thank the general public, residents, and business owners who took time out of their evenings to participate in the public comment period and share concerns of how our decisions will impact their everyday lives. These concerns are taken into consideration when we, as elected officials, are balancing revenue, expenses, taxes, and mill rates. And I want to put a plug in for those that thank us for our service, because it is during this time when it becomes most challenging. One of three responsibilities council members are responsible for is this process of budget adoption. This budget, as are all the others that came before this and adopted, are living documents that requires responsibility to be present, responsiveness, and listening to the general public and experiencing services delivered. Since I chair public safety, I want to thank Chief Priest and Chief Riddick, the entire leadership team, and the men and women in rank and file that continue to keep West Hartford safe. How often on our worst day we call 911 in a panic or a matter of emergent that we are received on the other end of the call with a trained professional who is engaged and ready to dispatch assistance within 5 minutes. When the officer or fire personnel arrives, they are ready to provide service and deliver 100% to protect person or property. And I have witnessed this up close and personal. Excellent services can only be delivered with appropriate funding, ongoing training, and essential equipment, which is provided by the budget adopted by this body. Each year, public safety presents a budget that is quite lean for at least what appears to be year after year after year since COVID. These men and women sacrifice what they really need for this can wait, for we cannot do without. They have made many modifications for savings. Fire has expanded the paramedic component. Leadership will anticipate how much use is left in an equipment, what could be done to save the town money, and search for equipment that is most economical for the town. But how long should we ask first responders to continue the sacrifice? Many residents have come before this body and raised the question about our PD. Do we need the number of officers we have? Can we reduce the department? I can confidently respond, yes, we do need the number of officers we have, and no, we cannot reduce the department. These officers and personnel are the very reasons why we are able to increase traffic stops, provide coverage and protection for town events for all to enjoy or to participate in. apply for grant funding to receive assistance to reduce and address our speeding on our local roads, respond to motorists when they call for help because their car is on fire, and they establish a perimeter for safety until fire personnel arrive. Respond to a burglary when a homeowner or business owner's merchandise was stolen. Provide overtime coverage because a colleague or colleagues are out because of medical issues and a whole host of other issues while serving this town to the best of their ability. At the end of every day, these men and women give their best to the town of West Hartford to protect and serve. In fact, the next time you see one, please thank them for their service. As elected officials, our duty is to be good stewards of public funds, which comes with a huge weight of responsibility. In an ideal world, no one wants a tax increase, but this time and the climate we are in now, or we are now living in, it is just not realistic. These are services and there are costs and there are expenses that must be paid for. Our district education in West Hartford, our district education is West Hartford's gem, which is a little costly this season, but I applaud the district and the BOE and the superintendent for adjusting what they determined to be necessary to reduce their initial budget. Going forward, we must work collaboratively, meaning BOE and us, the council, as well as our legislative delegation, to address the rising cost for our town. We must look out for our families who are challenged with struggles, residents on fixed incomes, as well as our students, because we are all in this together. I am a firm believer we sincerely work together where we can find solutions for productive and workable policies that are manageable. We cannot sustain large increases year after year. So our mill rate has come down to 5.74. Because of costs that are fixed, and soon we will all feel some discomfort. But we will also have confidence that essential services will be delivered and uninterrupted. And so for all of what I've stated, I will support this modified budget as presented and encourage my colleagues to do the same. I yield back, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks, and I so appreciate your work on public safety. Okay, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In my role as Chair of Finance Committee, I was sort of assigned today to sort of look back, a little bit of an overview. Also respond to our colleagues on the other side if there are any things that we disagree with, which there's a few, but it's not too bad. But I do have a few points I do want to point out. But overall, I just want to express my admiration for this process. It starts with just an amazing amount of transparency. People know in my day job, I'm a union representative. I deal with budgets in other towns. And there is no town that I've seen that is as transparent as this one. Our budget book, this is just one of them. This is the bigger one, but we also have two others that we get, is incredibly detailed. A lot of places it isn't. You see a spreadsheet and you kind of see a line for wages and you really don't know what it is, or very broad categories. Here we do have the opportunity to go in line by line. We also had, as the town manager mentioned, 7 workshops. All of our committees, each of our chairs did just a fantastic job going through each of their departments on that line by line basis. And even a book this big really isn't understandable just by reading it. You got to hear the explanation. You have to have that dialogue back and forth. And so being there and being in these meetings is just so valuable. And what our chairs did is, each of these committees, is to encourage that discussion. So they would have questions, but they'd also bring up other issues and challenge our departments to justify why they're spending the money they are. Because we all understand, of course, we're all shocked by the initial number, and it was a big number. We all needed to see exactly what is going on there. And that's exactly what each of the committee chairs did in leading their committees. The staff as well, I mean, the manager, we get letters, of course, from constituents that became part of the record, but we'd get a response, and it'd be a very detailed question at times. And Rick Ledwith would respond, "Hey, can I meet with you?" And he would go out and have individual meetings with constituents with ideas that they got from hearing maybe a newspaper article or something else. Some of those didn't work. That's okay. But I'm hopeful that anybody who went through that experience, saw how deeply concerned the town is, not just in finding out any ways we can cut this budget, but also to hearing people and seeing what new ideas there are. I also, of course, have to thank our leader, Mayor Cantor, who is just a rock through all these discussions. She is, her expertise is just absolutely invaluable, and I know the staff appreciates that. I know Rick appreciates it. We all do. It is just an incredible job that she does, and imagine having somebody in that chair who wasn't as experienced as her. She knows how to really get down to that, those details, with creative ideas, some of which are bearing fruit. The fact that the pension is no longer as big a driver as it used to be is really due to her creativity in moving to pension obligation bonds that have worked out, and have really, again, we used to have these conversations and we talk about that as a driver. We're not right now. Drivers we are talking about are things we can't really control. The increase in the cost of partnership to the state employee insurance plan that our employees have joined was a tough hit this year. It was still a good decision to go to that plan. This year was tough. On average, it has been a lot less, and the increases have been smaller in other places. I'm in a town right now where we've got over a 12% increase in their plan. They are paying more than we are, and it's a town that really can't afford it, even less than we can. And they don't have as good insurance for their members. So again, this is not something that we created. It's a tough year for it, and the timing of it stinks. But we are in an insurance plan that has historically been much more stable, and we certainly can hope and expect that the stability will last. The other thing, it hasn't come up yet, and again, we don't do the Board of Ed budget, of course, on line by line. But I did look back at it, and I'm curious about some of the increases. Their tuition, which is sending kids to other towns or other towns or agencies. I looked back over the last 10 years and saw 10 years ago it was about 2.3% of their budget. It is now well over 5% of their budget. And those are big numbers. And this year, I think it was, $4 million or so. And that, again, their increase was large this year, but a good chunk of that is that partnership and that tuition and transportation as well, both. And those are items really beyond our control. Again, very frustrating. But they exist, and that's nothing we can do about it locally. To Councilor McGinnis's point, really this is about the state. This is about getting proper reimbursement for these costs. This is a systemic problem, and we need to deal with it, and we are through our lobbying and advocacy for our town. I do want to, part of my committee, I just want to not forget, we do have cognizance over some of the smaller departments. They are not major budget drivers, but I do want to thank Lisa and Patty for their work in finance. Obviously, a bigger job, but they also have expenses within their department. Josephine Agnello-Bailey from HR, Dallas and Gina, Corp Counsel, our town clerk, as well as Beth Kyle and Elizabeth Rousseau, our registrars of voters. Those last two, of course, huge amount of extra work. We did do their salaries this past year, driven by the huge demand. They did a fantastic job. We all experienced it with early voting. Anybody who voted, and that was most of the town, saw how well that worked. And again, these are departments that, again, we could cut them all and it wouldn't do much. To Deb Poland's point, none of that would really have a huge mark, but it would obviously have a huge loss to the town if we were to do drastic cuts there. It would be noticed. And so, I mean, overall, I do agree that this is an unsustainable budget, and we need to look at these increases going year to year. But it has to be done in a reasonable manner. We've seen unreasonable ways one can cut. We've seen it in other communities. We've certainly seen it at the federal government, the wrong way to cut. Those are not the types of cuts that result in AAA ratings. Those aren't the kind of cuts that result in us being the best place to live in West Hartford. We are a great place. It is no accident that we are doing so well. It is because of good fiscal management, and not just cutting for the sake of cutting. We absolutely need to have that sort of level of professional management to keep what we have, which is what we all know is a premier place. I do want to end sort of a little bit anticlimactically, but just responding to a few things from the other side. In terms of the car tax, there was I think even the reporter would admit, a bad headline in the paper about a 5% increase in the car tax. This is not what happened. The state, as rather without a whole lot of thought from what I can gather, came up with a new way of valuing cars. And rather than doing it by the value of a car, which is how we do our homes, how we do our property, they decided to do it by the age of the car and a fixed depreciation schedule. And that would have resulted in a large decrease in the value of our cars in our town, which would then mean that we'd get less tax money for them. This really hurt a lot of towns. $50 million losses in a grand list is no small thing. In our budget, it would mean bigger tax increase on property, on real estate. So the legislature, after a lot of being pushed for this, gave us the right to restore the previous numbers, in effect. So initially they said you have to depreciate by 85%, starting at 85%, going down 5% a year. We were able to start at 90 and go down 5% a year. The value of cars from year to year has stayed about the same. So we did not increase. What we did is restored what it was. So last year, I want to be precise on this because, again, there's been a lot of misunderstanding. The value of our motor vehicles in 2023 was $589 million. The grand list in 2024, the new for this going forward will be 592. So it's a $3 million increase, as opposed to what would have been at least a $30, $40 million decrease. So again, we're not getting more revenue and the exact same tax rate, because that is fixed by the state. So again, this is not an increase in the taxes on cars, but it was an effort to maintain that level. And one thing just to point out, so the unfairness of this law, which again they're looking at again, there's a very good article that came out the other day talking about the sort of unforeseen winners in all that was collectibles. And there was a quote actually from our town, from our excellent assessor Joe Deckers, said that last year the city assessed a 2006 Ford GT, a street-legal supercar with enough horsepower to compete in racing, at $211,000. But this year it will be assessed at $33,000. So that is a loss in our grand list. So the 5% claws a little bit of that back, but not that much of it. And there were other cases of people in Greenwich, of course, took an even bigger hit of a few collectors with these exotic cars who got a real break. And again, I don't think that was the intent of the legislature. Hopefully they fix it. But that is what we were doing when we were taking advantage of the opportunity to claw back some of that value in cars. And then the other point I just wanted to raise, to Mark's point about the wage increase. And this was a topic I think Rick got sick of hearing me talk about it because it came up every time we had in a few public sessions and in our finance committee meetings. And we discussed this specifically. There's a budget line that talks about wages for the town side. And that was a fairly high number. And when Rick initially talked about this, he explained that this was because they were past settlements. And that the prior years of wages did get put into that line. But we also have a contingency fund. We had funded that previously. So in prior years, we had put money aside because we knew those contracts were coming up. So when they actually became part of wages, they moved out of contingency. So even though the line for wages shows that over 7% increase, that is not the total cost. So what I did, I went back, and sure enough, the contingency line, even before the $400,000 cut, was down, I think, 26%. So we had taken money out of contingency because we settled those contracts. I went back and added up the total wage line plus the contingency line for the past 6 years, and what it shows that, in fact, contingency has been working, and we have been having regular increases around 4.55% each year in the wage rate. This past year it was 5.3. And again, that includes step movement as well as merit and general wage increases. That is, fairly in line with, the norm for the state. And certainly part of what's going on with wages is the impact of COVID and inflation. So, nobody got the 8% raise, but we're catching up a little bit for that cost of living with the spikes that we had with inflation. So again, it was a nice headline. It made it look like there was a huge thing for employees. Raises are fine. They're good raises, but they're not at that level. And that's because it's just a budget line about how we adjust for the contingency. Now, I will say, and I'll conclude with noting that we have taken $400,000 out of that contingency going forward. If I were looking at that from outside, I would think that that would mean that labor negotiations might be more difficult coming forward. That the town is putting aside less money in anticipation of those contracts. I think that would be a reasonable assumption. I think that it will be a tough year on negotiations, and I think that that should be read as a signal. We all know that some of these, again, these tax increases can't be maintained like this, and we will have to work on that. And I think that is a fair, again, assumption to make. Obviously, we'll be at the table on those. But with that, ultimately, this contract, and I'll just say one more thing to Mark, this is about people. These wages, the wages, everything else, this is a people business. And when we have big cuts, it will mean losing people, and that's what we're going to have to decide. Where do we cut? What programs do we get rid of if we were to lower this? And I haven't heard those suggestions. I haven't heard people coming forward and saying this ought to be cut. These people should be laid off. And I do think that in order to have the kind of sizable decrease in the budget that a lot of people would like, that is where it would come from, and those are the decisions we have to make. But I've gone a little bit long, but trying to address these issues. And thank you, and I certainly urge support, and thank all my colleagues for indulging me.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. And as Chair of Finance and Administration, a lot of that is what you've been working on so hard, and so I appreciate the clarification, because it is important to educate and understand the right numbers and what we are dealing with. So I want to thank all of my colleagues at the table. We're all volunteers. We're all taxpayers. And we all are impacted personally as well. So this is hard. It is, as Mr. Cortez said, it is the hardest thing we do. It's the most important also. This year we had a collaborative effort, and we've worked together well over years, very differently than many other towns work, as Mr. Winograd had mentioned. And budgets never stand still in time. There are decisions that were made, whether it was not funding the pension 20, 25, 30 years ago that impacted us, whether it's a deferred maintenance kind of a decision that is made, or other. I don't think that we have a little bit. We keep on top of our investments in our infrastructure as well as we can. But it tells a story of priorities, successes, and challenges. We always have unknowns as we're heading into a budget cycle and we're heading into a new year. And we know that there are going to be unknown challenges, known challenges and unknown challenges. Sometimes really difficult ones, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a superstorm, whether it is some horrible accident or other things that happen. So we need to be prepared. This year, we know, as Ms. McGinnis said, there's certainly uncertainty. I mean, we know that. More this year than in previous years. And that is so hard. It's hard. It's hard that a lot of our neighbors and friends in our community are feeling so anxious about what is in their future. So this particular budget, we strongly believe it is what's necessary. As I think the Board of Ed said, it's what we need. It's not what we want, it's what we need. It is what we need to meet the expectations of our community, preserve our schools at some of the highest levels, and preserve us as being one of the best places to live, not only in our state, but in our country, as Finn said. And these investments are important for future years, because if we fall behind, it's going to be harder to catch up. As our town manager shared, we had a number of initiatives this year that are going to be helpful in future years. Well, you know, we talked about the grand list growth. We're going to be looking at everything and strategizing how we help to mitigate increases. I do want to thank all the people that have worked on all these pieces every day, but starting with our town manager, who has worked tirelessly to provide the tools for our departments to be the best that they can be, provide the best service in the most efficient manner. There was a lot they asked for that they did not get, and we know that. But keeping us safe and investing in our infrastructure and supporting our appropriate quality economic development, investing in our community is really, really critical. There's ways to improve, and I know I apologize that I probably drove them crazy at times, but thank you for your understanding and patience. Finance Director, as everybody has talked about, Finance Director Lisa Newton, during a challenging year, you had a challenging year in many ways, and we appreciate your expertise, your tireless work, and your commitment to the community and all of us. Patty Lewis, and your financial operations manager, you also took on a lot, and there was nobody better prepared for ARPA reporting and advising than you. So we're really, really lucky. Thank you both, and your team. Our police chief, Riddick, I'm just going to go through our heads, and I know they were mentioned, but I need to thank them personally. Our police chief, Riddick, fire chief, Priest, Public Works, John Phillip, Information Technology, Jared Morin, Human and Leisure Services, Helen Rubino Turco, who's also here as well with Finance, Plant and Facilities, Bob Palmer, Library Services, Laura Imsher, Josephine, our HR director, Agru Lavelli, Corporation Counsel, and our assessor, Joe Dakers. And I want to give a shout out, not a director level, but Kristen Gorski, who has worked so hard on economic development with Lauren Siegel. We've had incredible amounts of activity. And now the biggest part of our town, not a department, but our superintendent of schools here, Paul Vicinis. It has been a challenging period of time for our schools. COVID did impact many of our students, and I hear from parents quite frequently how, yes, kids are resilient, but they are impacted. And again, what happens over time does affect kids' future years as well. And Liz Hewitt, who supports our schools as well. Really, really incredible work by all of our department heads and our superintendent. And our Board of Education, I want to give a really special thank you to Lorna Thomas Farquharson, Chair, Vice Chair Shannon Merriman, Latoya Yagaloff, Claire Nessarella, Gail Harris, Ethan Goldman, and Jason Gagnon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The chair and I spoke about how challenging this year was going to be. And we decided that we wanted to go above and beyond our public hearings where we just receive comment and we don't have a candid conversation in how with our public. And we want them to understand the challenges that we face and the hard decisions that we are making and that we will have to make down the road. These are really, really important decisions that we need to make, and we need people to be understand the reality and the truth. And so I'm really grateful for the extra time and that commitment that everybody put in to make those happen. I really appreciate our town manager and superintendent gave a great, important presentation and overview, and we engaged in lots of conversation, and much of it was helpful. We would roll it out a little differently next year, I think, with more advance notice and spread out a little bit, but we felt once we understood how challenging the budget was, that this was something that we needed to do. We're a diverse and vibrant community, and we have such great schools. So I'm very, very thankful. Now to my colleagues, Mark Zdanowitz, Alberta Cortez, and Mary Fay, thank you for your honest input, your caring for our community, and all that you do to make our community better. This is all volunteer service, and we're really, really grateful to your input. The chairs of our committees work really, really hard to dig in and figure out what's driving this budget, how they can do things more efficiently, and are there opportunities to do things differently and to ask the really, really challenging questions. I'm going to kind of go in reverse, but Mr. Winograd chaired Finance and Administration last year and this year. And that was my committee for a lot of years. A little hard to let go of, but you've done a great job, and I really appreciate the questions and the challenges and so much of your again, commitment to making sure that all the numbers were accurate, people understood them. Appreciate that so much. Deb Pullen, Chair of Human and Leisure Services. Deb thinks about things so thoroughly, and she's always, asking certain questions and saying, could we do this differently? How can we do this? And I just appreciate the way you really examine things so profoundly, thoroughly. And then Ms. McGinnis chairs Community Planning and Economic Development. Again, a little incredible interest and passion for economic development and creating that vibrant community. Maybe it's so your 21-year-old comes back, but really important work. And I'm always, I'm just inspired by all of you. And Ms. Blanks, Public Safety, the work that you've done at all levels and some challenging issues, and supporting our chiefs, supporting rank and file, supporting our departments. Really, really appreciate your commitment and your, again, your passionate support for our public safety, because our town would not be what it is. And Mr. Walters, Public Works, Barry's our rookie. First budget cycle, right? Yeah? No, second budget cycle. Okay, sorry about that. But a lot of questions, and to say that we're all uncomfortable is accurate. I mean, none of us are happy passing on a tax increase. As Ms. Pullen said, all of us wanted no tax increase. And that's one of the reasons why we worked so hard to grow Grand List, and we are working to contain other costs. But Mr. Walters, I know, understands the Public Works Department very well, and has worked so closely with our director, John Phillips, who does an incredible job on a very, very tight budget. So thank you for all of your work. As I said before, budgets are connected and tell a story. They don't stand in isolation. They also demonstrate priorities and investments. Over the past 10 years, our tax increases have been 2.85%. The previous 10 years prior to this year, if you average them, they were 2.85%. With this budget, our tax increase is 3.1% over the past 10 years. CPI over the same period was 3.28%, and the moving average of inflation was 3.73%. And during this time, over the past 4 years more profoundly, excess cost, which is defined as 4.5 times the district's average student cost, that reimbursement rate, has fallen from 80% to 62%. So as we've seen rising costs in special education, we've been receiving lower reimbursement amounts. So that is driving a number of challenges this year. The town manager and I worked closely with ECS on ECS funding, relaying the message, how important that funding is for our communities across the board. Our per pupil expense, and we're a larger community, so you expect economies of scale, but we are 100 out of 169 towns in per pupil spending. Lower in our comparative, I don't know who has their mic on, but maybe, and lower comparative to the schools that are in our DIRG or that we are compared to frequently. Our ECS funding has remained relatively stable. It's gone up a little bit, but again, as the cost of education increases, it has not risen at the same rate. And as we mentioned before, we're 85% of our budget is property taxes. The state, $25 million ECS, some permit fees, and some other fees that we get. But largely, again, it is our property taxes, without other avenues of revenue streams. And added responsibilities. This year, one of the added responsibilities is early voting. It has cost our town. It's a great thing to do. Whether it's done this exact way in the future, I don't know what the best way is, but we definitely need to increase access to voting, and early voting is an important part of that. But we received very little from the state, and surely not enough to cover the costs of early voting. So that is an unfunded mandate. And added to the things that we have, like, I always say this and people go, what? A dog license is where it costs $9 for a neutered dog, $19 for an unneutered dog or cat or whatever. A dog, I think it's only dogs. And we keep $1 and the rest goes to the state. Same thing with speed enforcement. We keep a very, very small piece, but we are paying for our officers, and most of that money goes to the state. The state has allowed a few little revenue streams. They're a little odd, but NIPS, cannabis, and the opioid settlement funding. Again, not necessarily choices we would have made, but that's what we have, and they're restricted in the way that we can spend that money. Restaurant and hospitality tax was something that towns fought for, and it was actually adjusted as, rather than the 1%, it was first revised to be maybe 0.5% and other 0.5% invested in tourism and some training for restaurants. And then it was swept all. So the towns never received any money, and the state has received $500 million over the last 5 years in revenue that could have gone to municipalities. So, and we invest in our center of town. I have Vibrant Center that has, costs for parking and costs for cleanup and costs of infrastructure, all of those things that are important to us that we would, and that also would be restricted to be invested back into the areas where they are generated, which is fine. It's better than, but it would be helpful to have a general fund source of revenue as well. I think Rick shared, I'm not sure you shared it, but I think it was mentioned that we have a $500 million approved projects that grand list growth. That is about 3 times Blueback, I think. There is some affordable housing in there, which does not generate the same rate of grand list growth as our market rate, but we are not at 10% of affordability, deed restricted affordability, and we feel it's important that people that might work in town can live in town. And so, again, that balance, if we had all of those projects approved, we wouldn't have had a tax increase this year. As costs continue to rise and hopefully mitigate by some of the things that we're working on, that is an important part of our, of getting us, having us be the stellar town that we are with the continued investment and reinvestment. Our people in our town, our residents also invest in their homes, and grand lists will go up. We also have a revaluation coming, and many towns doing revaluation now are really struggling because housing costs have gone up so much that some municipalities are seeing 25, 30% tax increases based on that growth in their home values since 2018, because they could defer for a year, 2019. So challenging for sure. I know there was questions about administration in our schools, and I wanted to thank Mr. Vecinas for sharing this. According to this Connecticut School and State Finance Project, West Hartford Public Schools spends below the average on central office positions, 1.4% versus 3.4% statewide. Again, compared to Avon, Farmington, Glastonbury, Fairfield, Simsbury, South Windsor, we were all well below those percentages. Again, we're a bigger district, we have economies of scale, and those things really, really do help, but we are not out of the ballpark. So we are not a business, we are a service. We are an institution, a town that cares for its people and takes care of its people. And we can continue, if we talked about taking out $20 million, the community would not look the same. And hard to regain, we have so many qualified employees that are trained. And if we lose qualified employees, it's actually going to cost more to retrain them and bring them on board. And we are a vibrant community. We are a town that has activities all the time, and we need to keep all of our residents and visitors safe. And our world has become a little more dangerous, and it is at a different level than it was when I started doing this work. So it's challenging. We are being squeezed in lots of different ways, and there are things that we are really going to look at going forward. We know we have more work to do. But this is a budget that is the most responsible, fiscally invests in our future, continues to not take any shortcuts, not dig a hole for next year, and not do some of the things that I see our communities doing 1 year gimmicks or betting on something that might not come to fruition. I also think it prepares us for the volatility that we're expecting in this next year. I think we would be remiss if we didn't understand that there is chaos at lots of levels, and we need to be prepared to deal with it. And so I think, again, this budget is what we can do, the best we can do with what we have. And I just wanted to end with a little quote that just you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. It's what you are doing, and that's what we're doing now. And that's Confucius, so that's pretty smart. Anyway, all right. So with that, we are going to go to a roll call vote on each individual motion. So Mr. Winograd will read the motion, and then we will vote on that. And there are 4 that are related to the discussions that we just had. Again, thank you for those of you who joined us.
We already moved.
We moved and voted on, and seconded A, so we can do a roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Counselor Blanks.
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Counselor Cortez.
No.
Counselor Fay.
No.
Counselor McGinnis.
Yes.
Counselor Poland.
Yes.
Counselor Walters.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Yes.
Counselor Zdanowitz.
No.
Motion carries 6-3.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Mr. Winograd, B.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt an ordinance deauthorizing projects authorized in the capital improvement program for the fiscal year 2025-2026, appropriating funds for projects in the capital improvement program for the fiscal year 2025-2026, appropriating funds for the projects in the capital improvement program for the fiscal year 26-27, and authorizing the issuance of bonds of the town to finance the appropriations, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purpose.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and so this is the CIP, right? And just to clarify, Mr. Zdanowitz's comment earlier about the community center, this has been pushed out a year, and has Mr. Levy just...
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The construction of the community center was pushed out to year 3, so it is not in the capital improvement plan you're voting on tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Any questions? Okay. All right. Seeing no, we will go to roll call. Mr. Davidoff?
Counselor Blanks,
Yes.
Mayor Cantor,
Yes.
Counselor Cortez,
No.
Counselor Fay,
No.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Counselor Poland,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd,
Yes.
Counselor Zdanowitz.
No.
Motion carries 6-3.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff, and we will go to letter C, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt an ordinance concerning an appropriation to and in the capital improvement fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and this is our, what we refer to as our CIP, right? That, I'm
CNRE.
hello, I
Capital
was going to say, I know that's not right. CNRE, yeah, exactly. I don't know if there's any further questions? Okay, we will go to,
Could you give us a brief summary? I'm drawing a blank on the numbers on this one. Thank you.
So the capital non-recurring expenditure budget for the upcoming year is $2 million, $2,034,000. Includes traffic system management for $103,000, computer infrastructure for our school district at $200,000, $91,000 for furniture and equipment replacement, outdoor pool improvements at $70,000, park and playscape management at $95,000, town building improvements at $350,000, communications infrastructure at $387,000 for government operations, and then rolling stock and miscellaneous equipment, $247,000 for town vehicles, $336,000 for fire and miscellaneous equipment, and $30,000 for police training room furniture, and $125,000 for fire reserve apparatus fleet outfitting.
thank you, Mr. Ledwith.
So is that above and beyond what was budgeted originally?
Ms. Fay, could you press your mic to?
Sorry, I apologize. So this appropriation is over and above what was we budget? That's where I'm getting foggy on this.
Through you,
That's-
Madam Mayor. So we will typically fund capital non-recurring expenditures with, we will fund that account with surplus from year to year, and then through the budgeting process, we will allocate a certain percentage of CNRE for these types of expenses. These are not bonded expenses. These are expenses that are, less than 10 years of a useful life. Is it 10 years? Yeah. Thank you.
And so, just to be clear, it is a surplus that we're reallocating to these projects. Do I have that right?
Well, we have, after we have this allocation, I believe we'll have $1.6 million left in our CNRE account. Yeah. And we will generally, like if with this year's surplus, we will, through the council, with your recommendation, appropriate a certain percentage of that to CNRE to help us fund kind of these types of expenses as we move forward.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fay. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. All right, a motion's been made and seconded. We will go to roll call. Mr. David?
Counselor Blanks,
Yes.
Mayor Cantor,
Yes.
Counselor Cortez,
No.
Counselor Fay,
No.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Counselor Poland,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd,
Yes.
Counselor Zdanowitz.
No.
Motion carries 6-3.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. We will go to letter D, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt the resolution concerning a tax levy on the list of October 1, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This is very straightforward. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, Mr. Davidoff.
Counselor Blanks,
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Counselor Cortez,
No.
Counselor Fay,
No.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Counselor Poland,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd,
Yes.
Counselor Zdanowitz.
No.
Motion carries 6-3.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Letter E, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt a resolution authorizing year-end budgetary transfers.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, you want to just review those?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so this is a standard procedure that we do every budget year, which will allow me to direct the finance director to make any adjustments in our current fiscal year budget at the end of the year over the last 3 months of the fiscal year. So if we have, excess or a surplus of overtime funds in the police fund, we can allocate that to the fire if they were to go over, things like that. But we'd bring it forward to Finance and Administration and let you know what we were doing. But this just allows us to do that at the end of the year.
Thank you. This is standard. It's on our every year. So any questions? Yes. Okay, Ms. Pullen.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. What would happen if we did not provide this authority to you as the town manager?
So we would come to you formally through this process and do it in a meeting. Yep, so we'd go to F&A, and then we'd bring it to the council via resolution to, but there's a lot of moving parts at the end of the fiscal year. We'd be doing that quite often.
Thank you. So this is basically streamlines the process that we would be using anyway.
It does, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Okay, anything else? All right, we'll go roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Counselor Blanks,
Yes.
Sorry, we could do a voice vote for this one. Sorry. Set. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we are done with the meat and potatoes of this meeting. And we all have a little indigestion, but okay. And now we will go to reports from the town manager. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you. The town manager's report will be posted online, and I just want to hit a couple of the highlights. It is quite lengthy this week, so I'll be brief. But for this week, we do have another meeting on Thursday with Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting on Thursday, April 24th at 8 a.m. virtual. And then next week, we do have a public hearing for 29 Highland Street continuation that'll happen on Tuesday, April 29th at 6 p.m. So I mentioned earlier during the budget deliberations, we did receive a AAA bond rating. And on April 22nd, which is today, the town sold $15 million in general obligation bonds to fund various capital improvement projects for the town and the school district. The town received 8 bids, with the lowest bid having a true interest cost of 3.928%. Town officials said this was the best available rate at the time of sale and an excellent indication of the town's strong financial position and AAA status. In preparation for this sale, Standard & Poor's reaffirmed West Hartford's AAA bond rating on Friday, April 18th, a rating that the town has held since 1974. Starting today, Earth Day, West Hartford launched its food scraps recycling program. We have received positive support for this program, and some residents have already begun to try the app and are disposing of food scraps in the bins during the soft opening. 227 people downloaded the Metro Key app, which opens bins at any of the 4 locations. This program is managed by Blue Earth and accepts all food waste, including meat, bones, dairy, and spoiled food. Food scraps are brought to Quantum Biopower in Southington, Connecticut, and turned into biofuel. The locations are found right out here at Town Hall, Eisenhower Park, Norfelt Field, and the Yard Waste and Recycling Center. We will be holding a public informational meeting to explain the Sedgwick Road rehabilitation project and receive comments. And it will be held on Tuesday, April 29th at 6 p.m. in room 400 in the town hall. Community input is important to project development. The project calls for the construction of numerous complete streets features and safety improvements from South Main to Wardwell and roadway restriping from Wardwell to Ridgewood. This rehabilitation includes the addition of bike lanes, reconfigured lane arrangements, curb extensions at selected intersections, and raised crosswalks and median islands. The project is funded by the State of Connecticut Local Transportation Capital Improvement Program grant and is supplemented with town funds for a total estimated cost of $1.2 million. Construction will begin this fall and will be completed by the end of 2026. And that concludes my summary of the town manager's report. The rest of it can be found online. And through you, Madam Mayor, happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any questions from Mr. Ledwith? We've asked you lots of questions, so. All right, I don't see any. All right. Then we will go to Corporation Counsel. Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Congratulations to all of you and also the town manager on the adoption of the town budget. I have no formal report this evening, and we do not require any executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. All right, announcements, I'll be brief. Vote for Celebrate West Hartford in the Sunshine Artist Award. We've won this for past 10 years. There is a link on our website, so please support Celebrate for this award. West Hartford receives Connecticut Age Well Collaborative's 2025 Wellspring Award, fostering a community inclusivity for every age and every ability. One of Connecticut's first municipality to host a daring dialogue, a collaborative design community workshop that brings together community members and local leaders to challenge assumptions about aging and disability and explore our biases, influence our thoughts and actions. West Hartford is among 3 Connecticut towns, along with Wethersfield and Newtown, that will be recognized at a celebration in June. And I want to give a special shout out to Adrian Billings-Smith, Rebecca Sears, and our whole Human and Leisure Service, our whole Human Services Department for their work on this. The state of Connecticut will recognize World War II veterans on people that served from December 7th, 1941 to December 31st, 1946. There will be a ceremony on Monday, May 19th at 11 a.m. at the State Armory. If you know of a World War II veteran who would like to attend, please contact Karen Paquette at our social services department, and transportation will be provided. On a similar note, West Hartford resident John O'Leary IV will present his research on one of the untold stories from World War II at the International History Conference on World War II, hosted by Dominican University on May 28th through 31st. I'm sure that will be interesting. Memorial Day Parade will take place on May 26th at 10 a.m., and you can contact Renee with any questions for that. Encore Pop Rocks is the fundraiser for Playhouse on Park. Will take place from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. on Saturday night. 60th Annual Pancake Festival at the Greater Hartford Lions Club will take place at Farmington Avenue Baptist Church from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Tickets are $10. And they do collect eyeglasses and distribute them. So if you have, I have a bag actually of eyeglasses that I'm going to be dropping off. Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus musical, April 26th through May 3rd at the Playhouse on Park. This is for children in grades pre-K through 4th. And tickets are on sale at the Playhouse. Flora and Intimate Celebration, May 1st, will take place at the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society. This is a local artist, Jose Gaztambide, and the public is invited to attend the reception from 5 to 7 p.m. and runs through June 30th. Sparks Fly will take place May 1st, 6 to 8 p.m. in the Town Hall Auditorium, showcasing artistic talents of Conrad and Hall visual artists and guitar students. The celebration includes performances, exhibits, student vendors, and a raffle featuring generous donations from local businesses. Proceeds benefit the Nature Conservancy. 16th annual Run for the Roses to benefit pancreatic cancer. The foundation, it will, let's see, it's at the, where is it? Farmington Polo Club, that's what I thought. So purchase tickets, there is a link on our website. It's always a great event. World Labyrinth Day, May 3rd. This is moving through meditation for world peace. At First Church, participants will walk as one to create a rolling wave of peaceful energy at this family-friendly event. Meet at the front lawn of First Church. Between 1 and 2, parking is available for free in the rear lot. Webster War on Words, May 8th, 7 to 10 p.m. at the Pond House Cafe, with this year's event inspiring spirited competition between teams. There is a link for tickets on our website as well. Senior Day, May 14th, will be held at Elmwood Community Center from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. Derek Slapp will also be there. West Hartford Social Services, Senior Citizens Advisory Commission, West Hartford Police and Fire Department CERT as well, and free continental breakfast. Spring plant sale will take place May 17th, the West Hartford Garden Club's annual event, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Noah Webster House. And I think that's all I had. Oh, wow, that's really annoying. Sorry about that. Any other announcements? Mr. Cortez.
This is your bi-weekly reminder that West Hartford United Methodist Church is a drop-off location for the Community Cares food pantry here in West Hartford. We're taking now food, non-perishable food items, but also diapers as well, feminine products, hygiene products. Again, food insecurity is a 365-day thing. And you could also text or call 860-798-7123 if you can't make it to these locations, and I'll come and pick it up with my big red truck and make sure it gets over here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just can't emphasize more how important it is for food for everybody, but headed into the summer, it's very, very important too for our school children, especially that are home. So any other announcements? Mr. Walters.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I'll be quick. Just hot off the presses, May 3rd will be the Park Road Neighborhood Cleanup Day from 9 to 12. We'll be meeting in front of Playhouse on Park. I said hot off the presses because I'm not sure if the flyer's even been posted yet, but it has been sent over. A number of at least a couple counselors will be there representing, and I believe Representative Gilchrist will be attending as well. So come on down and help.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Anything else? All right. So without objection, I make a motion to adjourn. Any objection? We are now adjourned. Thank you.